Chapter 55 Campaign. By the time the term started, we were ready to start talking to the teachers. Shockwave, of course, was signed up for a full load of classes, and the rest of us were busy too. Our progress in the campaign slowed dramatically, and it got harder and harder to find times when we were all free to meet. Fortunately, a lot of Shockwave's classes, at least the science ones, were classes I was taking too, so I could talk to him relatively often. He wanted to speak personally with every teacher in the academy before the real campaign started. But he also needed to keep his grades up. More and more often, he came to Perceptor's house in the off-cycle after a full evening of presenting his case to teachers, and Wheeljack and I stayed up late helping him with his homework. He never complained about missing recharge, but it wasn't really hard to tell that he wasn't getting enough. One evening, we were sitting in Perceptor's front room, doing an assignment. I wasn't helping much because I wasn't in that class, but Wheeljack and Shockwave were working on it and occasionally asking Perceptor for help. Shockwave was having a hard time paying attention, which was worrying because it was so uncharacteristic of him. He was having trouble with one of the problems that Wheeljack understood, and his classmate was trying to explain it to him for the third time when he just slumped forward on the table and his higher function shut down. Wheeljack stared at him for a moment, surprised and then worried. Shocky. He poked his friend's shoulder. You okay? Responding to the touch and the noise, Shockwave's system sluggishly booted up again. Huh. Sorry. What were you saying? What happened? Are you all right? I just wasn't paying attention is all, Shockwave said quietly. Can you start over? I'm so sorry I'm not getting this. You just shut down, Wheeljack said. Are you sure you're all right? Perceptor looked up from the datapad he'd been immersed in. What just happened? Shockwave shut down, Wheeljack said. Just now, just slumped over the table. I'm fine, Shockwave insisted. Just tired. He rubbed his faceplate and looked back at his homework. Are we still on problem 15? Oh, Primus, this homework is eternal. I have so much to do after I get home, this off-cycle. Shockwave, Perceptor said. He's going to make himself ill. You really should get more rest. You're probably right. Maybe in a few orns. You can't be a good candidate for the council if you're recharging on your PUDs all the time. Shockwave shook his helm. I know. I've got to finish this though. It's due next orn. How about this? Perceptor said. I'll talk to your professor and ask if he'll extend the deadline on that assignment by an orn. Then you can go home and get some recharge. Shockwave yawned. That would be really nice. I still have another couple of drawers of work. And next orn, I have 6 meetings I have to prepare for. That's provided you actually rest, Perceptor looked at me. Does he intend to recharge? I'll definitely get more rest if I don't have to do this yet, Shockwave looked down at the assignment. I shook my helm slightly. I don't think I believe you, Perceptor said. Nor am I confident in your ability to walk home by yourself. I'm all right. Maybe you should stay here. I have a spare room. I do have a few other things to get done this orn, Shockwave said. I need to go home. Perceptor shook his helm. What exactly do you need to get done? I have 6 meetings with different teachers next orn, Shockwave said. I need to prepare for them and review the information about the teachers and his optics lost focus and he nearly shut down again, but caught himself. Perceptor raised an optic ridge. It'll probably be a few more drawers. Shockwave, I said. What? I'll go talk to those teachers for you next orn. He looked up. What? I'll talk to them for you. You do and need to do the whole thing yourself. Really? But he hates talking. Are you sure? You don't have to. I can do it, I said. Really? I was the only one really understood how tired he was. I could give up a few drawers of recharge in his behalf. He put his faceplate in his hands. Are you absolutely sure? I don't want to ask that of you. I'll do it, Shockwave, I said. Thank you. Wheeljack, Perceptor said. Can I trust you to get him home and make sure he gets some recharge? Wheeljack nodded. Don't let him talk his way out of it. Shockwave, go get some rest. Shockwave nodded. Soundwave is never going to know exactly how much this means. I knew very well what it meant. He worked harder than Ratchet and I put together, and he needed a break. Okay, so Shockwave said. At 8 drawers and 20 breams. I know your schedule, I said flatly. I helped write it. Oh, right. You are really tired, Wheeljack said. Shockwave smiled slightly. I guess. Go home, Perceptor insisted. Shockwave nodded. Wheeljack gathered up their homework and they left out the front door. Perceptor sighed. I hope this turns out well. You think he'll be elected? He's certainly trying harder than any student ever has in the history of Cybertron. And he's intelligent and careful enough to pull it off. I still wish he'd stick to science, though. It's significantly safer and he's just so bright. I shrugged. Shockwave would like nothing more than to stick to science. But he felt he had to do this. And now I had to spend a few drawers preparing to go talk to teachers. What fun. I stood outside the door, steeling myself. I tried not to worry about my stutter, because I knew if I worried about it, it would be worse. I kept telling myself I had to do this because I'd promised Shockwave I would, but it was still hard. I could hear the teacher inside. She seemed reasonably friendly. It would be all right. I requested entry. The door slid open, and she looked up from her desk. She was a little surprised to see me and not Shockwave. Hello, she said. Can I help you with something? I'm here to represent Shockwave, I said. He wanted to come, but something came up, and he didn't want to cancel and reschedule, so I offered to come in his stead. Oh. I'm not so sure about this. At the same time, I'm curious. Let's see how well this mech does at representing him. I took a deep vent and started talking, working my way through the things Shockwave had planned to say and answering her questions when she had them, sometimes before she asked them. After I got over my initial nervousness, it became almost like a game where I tried to match Shockwave's campaign to the thing she wanted. By the time I was done, she was strongly in favor of him, and I was almost late for my next meeting. Not all of them went as well as the first, but I got 4 of the 6 on Shockwave's side for certain. I was exhausted after the last one, but I went over to Shockwave's dorm instead of Perceptor's house so I could tell him the news. He was there, almost finished with his homework and feeling much better than the orn before. He let me in at my entry request, and I gave him the news and some files with new information about what each teacher had seemed concerned with. Shockwave thanked me profusely and I volunteered to take a few of his meetings in the future if he ever got too busy again. After that, I was going to 2 or 3 meetings per decane. Shockwave was working his way through every teacher in the school, which was quite an impressive feat. He insisted it was necessary, and that it was necessary to do so by the time his campaign started in earnest. He met his goal. We had talked to every single teacher by the time the term was halfway over. After that, things got busier. He wanted to meet with several teachers a second time, and he also had to talk to a lot of students. His friends from his political science classes helped him plan gatherings, handed out flyers, and with some teachers' permission made appearances in classes to talk about him. Before too long, the whole academy knew who he was, and most of the students were on his side. Some of the teachers vying for the position tried to step up their game, realizing that Shockwave was seriously outdoing them, but it was too little, too late. We were unstoppable. Shockwave, for all his shyness, was a good public speaker, Wheeljack, to everyone's surprise, came out with flyers and posters that were informative, aesthetic, and did not do anything remotely like explode. Orion kept us all up to date on the council and the current political scene, and Ratchet was a great contributor in forcing Shockwave to get at least some recharge, often by threatening to use his new integrated medical saw to remove Shockwave's legs. As the election approached, Shockwave's number of supporters increased. Nearly the whole student body was on board, and they were expected to get most of the teacher votes as well. Shockwave was actually more surprised than excited, which I thought was ridiculous. We had all worked so hard, especially him, to push this movement forward. If he hadn't gotten a lot of support, I would have been really upset. 2 decades before the elections, they had a big gathering on campus. Thousands of students and teachers and a good number of community members came. Shockwave spoke, and then talked to a whole lot of mecha who wanted to meet him. It was a great success, and unless something ridiculous happened in the next little while, he was set up to win by a landslide. It was doors after his speech ended before the crowd dissipated enough that Wheeljack and Ratchet could convince him to leave. We dragged him back to Perceptor's house to celebrate. Perceptor had left after his speech, and so was already home when we got there. Shockwave was tired and would rather have gone straight home to recharge, but he wasn't going to say anything, not with the rest of us in such a celebratory mood. Well, Perceptor said once we were all inside. This has gone well, don't you think? Do you all want some energon? He led us to the main room and we all sat around the table. You were just telling me, Paradigm said as she sat down next to Shockwave, just 3 decades ago, that you didn't think you were going to win, Shocky. What do you think now? He can't still be worried. Shockwave shrugged. I don't know. His voice was quiet and full of static. Ratchet glared in his direction. That sounds suspiciously unhealthy. I'll need to corner him later. Don't be ridiculous, Dion said. You're going to win this, you're actually going to be on the council. This is crazy. He grinned. If the council accepts him, Accord said. But they'll have to stretch pretty far to come up with a reason not to. It's too early to say anything yet, Shockwave said. Primus, I need recharge. They stayed and talked for a while, but Shockwave wasn't the only one who was tired. We'd all had an exhausting day. After they were done with their energon, Paradigm got up and declared that it was time for everyone to go get some rest. All right, Shockwave said, still staticky and hushed. Let's head back to the dorms then. Wheeljack, are you coming? Sure, Wheeljack said, downing the last of his energon and getting up. Wait, Ratchet stood suddenly. Not yet. He pushed away from the table and came around it. Sit back down. Shockwave shook his helm. I'm really tired, Ratchet. Aren't you always insisting I get more recharge? The rest of you can go, Ratchet said. I need to check something. They hesitated. Shockwave sighed and sat back down. You 4 should go, he said. I'll catch up. Accord, Dion, and Paradigm reluctantly left Shockwave to his fate, but Wheeljack sat back down at the table. He wanted to ask Perceptor about something anyway. Hold still. Ratchet scanned Shockwave's helm and neck. Does your voice box hurt? It's fine, Ratchet. No, it's not. You're overworking it. You need to stop talking or it could go out completely. Shockwave sighed. Right before the election. Shut up. Ratchet. I said stop talking. You're hurting yourself. You could end up sounding like Soundwave for the rest of your life. No offense, Soundwave. I shrugged. If I was easily offended, I probably wouldn't be Ratchet's friend. I think you're overreacting, ow. I said shut up or I'll drag you to a real medic and he'll tell you aren't allowed to talk for a Decairn. Shockwave frowned. I have to talk. I can't just stop talking. How long should he stay quiet? I asked. At least 3 orns, Ratchet said. At least. Shockwave shook his helm. Yes, Ratchet said. What do you even have scheduled in the next 3 orns? Next orn we have off school. Why don't you just call your friends and ask them to cover for you? If you lose your voice, Perceptor said. You're going to have a hard time convincing the council to accept you if you're elected. I know. Ow, Ratchet. Hitting me is not going to help. We're not going to be able to trust him not to go talk to someone, are we? Ratchet said. No, we weren't. I have an idea then, Perceptor smiled. You can all stay here for the off cycle. Then next orn, when you're free, you can all go to the Hall of Records with Orion. Shockwave too. That way you can keep an optic on him and make sure he rests his voice box. But, ow. Stop talking. You don't have a say in this. You're infringing on my rights, Shockwave muttered. Are you going to shut up, or do I have to slagging remove your voice box and shove it up your tailpipe? Did he used to be so bossy? Shockwave wondered, maybe not quite so much. Also, Ratchet said. Did you just make a joke? Shockwave raised an optic ridge. Don't answer that. I agree with Ratchet, Wheeljack said. You need a break, Shocky. Shockwave sighed. Well, I will need a break if Ratchet doesn't stop hitting me. Just for 1 orn, Perceptor said. You wouldn't want your voice box to go out completely during the elections. Shockwave nodded. Fine. It's too bad he doesn't know about Soundwave, Perceptor thought. He could still communicate that way. Also, I still don't trust him to stay quiet if we just let him go. That sounded bad, even in my helm. Oh, and I could use some help in the lab. Shockwave, there's a spare room or 2 on this floor. Soundwave will show you. Ratchet and Orion, you're welcome to stay the off cycle as well. I should go, Orion said. But I'll come back next orn, and you should all come with me to work. I'm leaving too, Ratchet said. But you'd better still be here next orn, Shockwave. Shockwave rolled his optics. Sometimes, my friends. The 2 of them left. I could use a little help in the lab if you aren't too tired. Perceptor said. All right. Wheeljack said. What are you doing? Shockwave asked. I'm not that tired. Yes, he was. You need rest, Perceptor said. Don't argue. Shockwave sighed. Well, I did choose this road. Science is so much easier and more fulfilling than politics, but I made the choice. Come on. I got up from the table. I got Shockwave settled in one of the spare rooms, then went to recharge myself. I listened for a while to what Perceptor and Wheeljack were doing, but then pulled my range and so it was just me and my symbiotes. I was the first one awake the next on cycle, so I got up and started into my homework, which had been piling up. Just a few decairns after the elections, we had finals. Shockwave, despite his brilliance, was probably not going to have perfect grades this term. He really shouldn't worry about it as much as he did, though. He got up next, and came out to the front room to sit at the table with me. Don't talk, I warned him as he opened his lip plates to say something. He sighed and pulled a datapad out of subspace instead. Good Orn. I nodded. He took the datapad back and typed. Any chance you could cover for me when Ratchet gets here, so I can leave? He was mostly joking. I shook my helm. Ratchet and Orion showed up just 20 breams later. We didn't want to wake Perceptor or Wheeljack up. We figured whatever experiment they'd done had taken longer than expected, and kept them up late, so we just left them a note and made our way to the Hall of Records. We went to Orion's office at first, but then Alpha Trion showed up, and Ratchet and I had to drag Shockwave out of the room, so he wouldn't try to start a conversation with the council mech. We sat at a table in an open area, and all three of us did homework in companionable silence. I could just imagine how disappointed Searchlight would have been with all of us. We had an Orn off of school and we were using it to sit around in a library, doing homework. About halfway through the Orn, Orion came to find us. I'm going to talk to McAdam, he said. Do you three want to come? We're coming, Ratchet said. Hold on, let me see if I've brought all I need. Hang on, Shockwave said. I'm not going to an illegal. It's not illegal, Orion said. I mean, Mac has a reputation for harboring criminals and the like, but the oil house itself is legal. Don't worry, Ratchet said. It's not so bad. And we might not even make it there. Orion, I need you to help me. With what? Orion asked. Ratchet finished pulling tools out of subspace and then started putting them back in. I just need you to bribe them. Bribe who? Shockwave asked. Ratchet glared at him. I really don't want to start forcing them to do anything, Orion said. That's not the point. It's for their own good. Besides, they don't have to do anything but stand still. Shockwave was trying to weigh the consequences of asking us who we were talking about. Orion's horde of beggar sparklings, I said quietly, so he didn't need to ask. Yes, Ratchet said. I don't think a slagging one of them has seen a medic for a regular checkup since they were sparked. Oh, Shockwave said. I've heard about those sparklings. I guess I'll finally get to meet them. Okay, let's go, Ratchet said. I'm ready. We walked out of the Hall of Records. We had to stop so Orion could get the energon treats. Shockwave was surprised at how many Orion bought. He obviously didn't know just how big the horde was. The first group approached just a few blocks away. 3 little femmes. Hi, Orion, the oldest one said with a shy smile. Hello, Summer, Orion said. How are you doing? Good, the little femme ducked her helm. Do you have energon treats this Orn? Orion smiled. I do. But first, my friend Ratchet wants to ask you some questions. Is that okay? He just wants to make sure you're healthy. Oh, Summer said. Like a medic. Yes, Ratchet said. Only I'm just a student. What's your designation and your creator's designations? He got information about each of them and then gave them all a basic checkup. One of them had a loose arm joint, which he gently tightened. The smallest one had to be coaxed over, because she was scared of medics. Then they all got their energon treats and went on their way. You know, Shockwave said quietly, as noble as this is, both of you, those sparklings belong to their creators, and it's probably not legal handing out candy and medical treatment like that. It isn't safe for the city to allow things like this. The two of you have good intentions, but not everyone does. Some of them live on the streets, Orion said. They don't have anyone to take care of them, and most of them are very poor. Shockwave nodded. Very well, then. Until I can say that there are not sparklings whose creators can't pay for medical care, then I suppose I can neither fault nor discourage Orion and Ratchet from what they're doing here. I had been worried for a moment that he might turn them in. But Shockwave always considered things very carefully and often erred on the side of allowing them to continue as they were. He was, of course, willing to step forward and say something whenever he saw something he thought was wrong, but he'd rather attack the root of the problem. We ran into a larger group of sparklings, who all, oddly enough, clamored for their turn to see Ratchet. Most of them would probably have run or protested if even Orion had suggested taking them to a medic, but they saw Ratchet as more of a magician, who fixed things when they were hurt. And he did that, surprisingly well. He also seemed to know that he could snap at the braver sparklings, but had to be kind to the timid ones. He only frightened a few of them, and despite his prickliness, he cared about all of them. He was compiling a list of records for them, as if they were his patients. Of course, he didn't really have time to keep track of or take care of all of them, especially if he wasn't making any credit off of it. Orion was rubbing off on him for certain. I kept my mind out of the mass of sparklings for the most part because they were a whirlwind of thoughts, and it got a little dizzying. Because of that, I wasn't prepared when a little mech sparkling after enduring Ratchet's prodding incomplete but contemplative silence held off on taking the energon treat Orion offered him. What is it? Orion asked. Mr. Ratchet. The sparkling said quietly. What? Ratchet snapped. I expanded my range to hear what the sparkling was thinking, just before he gathered the courage to ask. Mr. Ratchet, my femme creator's sick and we can't pay for a medic no more. Can you come and make her better? Oh slag, Ratchet thought. I can't ask him to start doing things like that, Orion realized. Ticket, he addressed the sparkling. I don't know if, but he looked so hopeful. I can't promise anything, Ratchet said quietly. I'm just a student, and not a very good one at that. But I can come see if there's anything I can do. Nonsense, Ratchet, Shockwave said quietly. Ratchet and Orion looked at him, confused, but he just smiled. You're no poor student. You're a genius. Ratchet snorted. You wish. You and Orion both. If I was a genius, I could fix both of your glitching processors so you would be so slagging, noble and self-sacrificing all the time, and I'd feel a little less like an idiot all the time. Ticket, stick with us until we're done with the rest of these, and then you can take us to your creator. Thank you, he said, optics shining. Then he burst into a fit of sobbing and had to be hugged by several of his playmates and given 3 or 4 energon treats before he calmed down. By the time they'd gotten through that batch of sparklings, another had shown up, and then it got really crazy. Some of them roped Orion into playing a game with them, and I got landed with the job of handing out energon treats after Ratchet was finished. It started getting harder for Ratchet to tell which sparklings he'd seen so far and which he hadn't. Some tried to go through a second time in order to get another energon treat, but I was there to tell him when they were lying. Shockwave was approached by a few mecha who had heard of him and were interested in his campaign, so he was drawn away to talk to them. Then Ratchet noticed and tried to send me to go drag him. Becky was not supposed to be talking at all, but telling Mecha what to do had never really been my thing. So Ratchet had to leave off giving Sparklings checkups to go embarrass Shockwave in front of a small crowd of supporters by shouting at him and dragging him away. Then Ratchet had to drag Orion away from his game with the Sparklings and hunt down the one who'd asked about his femme creator. By then he was in a foul mood. We excused ourselves from the Sparklings and small crowd, and Ticket led us away. He took us out of the main streets, down alleyways, some of which Orion had to turn sideways and to walk through. We finally reached a rusty little apartment. Ticket's femme creator was in a back room, lying on a berth, but she wasn't recharging. When Ticket let us in, she looked up. Oh, no, what's going on? We can't have missed the rent payment. No, those aren't managers. Oh, Ticket, what have you done? You haven't gotten into trouble, little mech, have you? Hello, Orion said. We're very sorry to bother you. No, it's all right. She sat up with some effort. Has Ticket done something I should know about? Her Sparkling climbed up onto her lap. Mr. Ratchet's going to help you, he said. I told you about Mr. Orion. Oh, she said. Yes, Orion said. I'm Orion. I suppose some creators would probably be upset at me for this, but I like to hand out energon treats to the Sparklings in the city. This is my friend, Ratchet. He's studying at the academy to become a medic and well, Ticket told us you were sick and asked if we could come see you. Oh, no, Primus, Ticket, why, she was mortified. I can't believe he'd go and ask for, there's nothing anyone can do about me. I have been to medics, and whatever I have, it'll take a lot more credit than I'd ever hope to own to get me repaired. I'm so sorry Ticket dragged you all the way out here. At least let me try, Ratchet said. She held her Sparkling tightly to her, afraid. Mr. Ratchet's really good at fixing mecha. You know factor. His hand was broken. I told you that, didn't I? Mr. Ratchet fixed him real fast, when none of us could do anything about it. He's better than a medic, he's a student. Ticket's femme creator shuddered her optics. I suppose it can't make things worse. How long have you been unwell? Ratchet asked. The diagnosis didn't take too long. She had a rare strain of microbots that were feeding off her energon and slowly eating away at her internals. The infection had progressed to a point where she could barely function. She'd already needed to quit her job, and her Sparkmate barely made enough for them to get energon and pay the rent. The procedure for purging the infection would be expensive and require a long recovery time. Not only was Ratchet lacking in the resources and experience to perform it himself, it was doubtful he even had the credit. His creators had a lot of money, but they would surely not allow him to use it for something like this, and Ticket's femme creator would certainly refuse to accept such a donation. Furthermore, the procedure was dangerous and sometimes fatal. It was worth it, of course, because she was dying anyway, but at this point she was already very weak. There had been a glimmer of hope in her emotional core, and Ratchet had seen it. He didn't want to crush it, but she could tell from his expression that the news was good. I have seen a medic, she said again. I know what I have. Ratchet nodded. I can't help her. She's dying. Slag it, I'm so useless. The femme smiled. Thank you so much for coming, though. It means a lot that some mecha are willing to try and help each other. It's such a rare thing. And Orion, thank you so much for what you do. Sometimes that energon treat is the only thing Ticket gets all orn. I know he's not the only one. Orion shrugged. Well, I could hardly live with myself if I stood around and watched Sparkling suffer. Most mecha don't care, the femme said. Can you fix her, Mr. Ratchet? Ticket asked, obviously not having picked up on the nuances of the conversation. Ratchet and the femme stared at each other in dismay for a moment. Then the femme prepared herself to break the news to her hopeful little creation. I pulled my mind away so I didn't have to hear their anguish. Yes, Ratchet said. We all stared at him. If I go to the department head and tell him I'm changing my term project, it will take some time, and it might not work, but I can try to find a way to help you. She shook her helm. Don't say it just for Ticket, don't give us false hope. I'm not, Ratchet said. I have to do some sort of project this term, and the academy will give me funding to look for a safer cure for that strain of microbot infection. I can't promise it will work, but I can try. The femme stared. But he would do something like that, just for some dying femme, he doesn't know. So I wouldn't get your hopes up too high, but you don't even know me. Does it matter? Ratchet snapped. Hit, femme, I want to be a medic. I'm not going to know all of my patients personally before I start seeing them, am I? No, she said, a little shocked at his language, but feeling too dazed to complain about it. But most of them will be paying you. Ratchet frowned. You know, so far that hasn't been the case. I don't care. I needed a term project anyway. That wasn't true. He'd been working on his project since halfway through the term and had it practically completed. If he did this, abandoned it in favor of this new project, he would only have 5 decairns in which to complete it and prepare a presentation on it. This could easily cost him his grade in that class. And he cared quite a lot about grades. Shockwave understood what he was sacrificing, and Orion did as well, though not to the same extent. Ticket's femme creator didn't, but she was so grateful, she couldn't find words to express herself. So we took our leave of her and none of us spoke until we were back in the Hall of Records.